move to Deputy Fiona O'Loughlin.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. For far too long in this country, the victims of crime have been ignored and they certainly have not been supported appropriately. Crime indeed has many victims and causes huge psychological and emotional trauma and anguish, as well as the more obvious physical effects and indeed in many cases financial. And when we look at victims and the fact that they have to go to court to bear witness and to look for justice, not just for themselves but for the community within which they live as well, then they themselves become witnesses and often feel that they are the ones on trial during cross-examination. And in many cases they have to relive their very difficult and often very traumatic experiences. Our victims in this country deserve and need support, dignity and the appropriate protection. And this is especially true for victims of sensitive crimes such as rape, for those suffering from domestic violence and, of course, for children themselves. This bill introduces for the first time statutory rights for victims of crime, and those three essential rights are the rights to information, the right to protection and the right to support. One of the interesting features in it related to a visit that I had not too long ago to Dolphin House, and to see the archaic situation where our family courts are, the services that are for the family courts here in Dublin. And one of the things that really struck me there was the lack of privacy for victims and the fact that they were in the same small, packed space in halls as those who are accused of perpetrating crimes against them. And I really found this quite appalling for them, and can only imagine the difficulty that this visited on those, in the main, women. And I'm really glad to see the provision that there would have to be a separate waiting area for victims as opposed to those accused of the crime. In looking at the submission that the Rape Crisis Network sent, and I'd like to compliment them on their very comprehensive review, and there was many recommendations that they made, but I think in particular the recommendation around having a victim ombudsman certainly deserves merit, and also in relation to the 14th recommendation about, in some certain instances, having pre-recorded submissions. Again, I think that there's a lot of merit in that. The state and all of us must encourage everybody who is a victim of crime to report it. It's sometimes not a very easy thing to do, but I think there's an onus on every victim to do that, and that's supporting other potential or possible victims down the line. And it's certainly not easy for people to waive their own anonymity, but I applaud those that do that to help others. And the case of Anna Ilnica is one I know that we've all read about, and the letter that she wrote to us as members of the Dáil described in harrowing detail how victims of crime can be utterly failed by the health, justice and Garda systems in this country. Anna wants and deserves an inquiry into the events surrounding how she was treated by state agencies following the brutal physical and sexual assault she experienced in 2006. No sexual assault examination was made, despite the recording of an allegation of sexual assault in hospital. No interpreter was provided to take her statement, nor was one provided later when the accused was in court on the assault charge. No effort was made to keep her informed on the progress of the case. The DPP decided that no prosecutions would take place in her case. She alleges negligence and reckless disregard of basic requirements in dealing with her complaints of rape, sexual and physical assault. This vulnerable woman was failed at every turn, and her case raises serious issues about how we treat the victims of crime in Ireland. The Government has already missed a November 2015 deadline to put into law the European Union's Victims Directive, which sets out, and it's just the minimum standards of protection a victim of crime should receive. So this bill urgently needs to be discussed and improved to ensure no more victims of crime endure this type of treatment by the state. It's important that victims should not be treated by the courts as just another witness, as I have mentioned. They should receive support and protection to enable them to participate in legal proceedings without feeling further victimised by the system. Victims of crime deserve to be treated with dignity, with respect, to be provided with information about the progress any investigation or court proceedings, to avail of interpretation services when they need them. And one of the most important rights this bill gives victims includes the rights to be informed by any decision not to institute a prosecution of the offence, and the right indeed to request a review. Gurv Mahagat, Minister.